Welcome, 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 everyone. This is the last event in the Writers at Work series, sponsored by Compass Advantage and the Creative Writing program at Ball State University. This is Kathy Day, and I have been hosting this and enjoying it so much over the last 6 weeks. This is week 7, and my guest tonight is Katie Didden, and we're going to be talking about how to write an artist statement so that you can be eligible to apply for all kinds of things that can help you in your life as a writer. But before we get started, Katie, if you want to go ahead and share your screen, share the presentation. I usually go through a few things with everybody before we get started. Just so you know, the website, if you want to go to the second slide, yes, the website, sites.bsu.edu Cardinal Directions has all of the takeaway documents, all the resources, and the videos of these presentations, and you can also see the schedule for the next few weeks. You can also read a more a full bio of Katie and the other speakers that we've had. Go ahead and go to the next slide, Katie. Next week, the topic, we're going to be switching in kind of a major way next week. We're going to be switching from the Writers at Work series to a different focus, Cardinal Directions. And this is going to be less focused on the writing life and as a business or as your primary identity. This is going to be focused on something that we all need to figure out, which is how do we pay the bills? And so this is the first in that series. It's on personal branding. I actually hate the term branding, but it's really nothing more than figuring out how to differentiate yourself from the crowd. You're going to do a few different writing activities aimed at helping you to find and articulate what makes you you. And the way that you get signed up, this Zoom link will no longer work. You'll be in a Zoom room by yourself next week. So you need to register at tinyurl.com/carddirections. And that will put you in an entirely new Zoom room. So this is next week at 5 o'clock. And then on the next slide, you can see what the topics are going to be for the next few weeks. So there's personal branding. The week after spring break, we're going to do self-assessments and kind of figure out what our strengths are, what we're like. Then we're going to do networking for introverts, new rules for resumes, LinkedIn and Cardinals Connect, going to informational interviews, how you can talk to people. Like, it's a really good idea. I know this sounds like wow, but you should talk to people who do the thing that you think you want to do. I know that sounds like kind of elementary, but actually so many people are actually scared to talk to the people who do the thing that they want to do. So we're going to talk about how to do that and how to get over that. And then the last week is Alumni Resume Workshop with former students of mine, Bruno Reiner and Melissa Jones. So that is the end of my spiel. And I'm really looking forward to hearing from Katie, because Katie is the queen of residencies and she knows how to do the POBIZ. And I hope that she will explain to you what the POBIZ is in her talk. Thank you so much for being here, Katie.
It's my pleasure. It's really wonderful to be with you all today. And I think this is such a terrific program. I've always been grateful to Kathy for establishing this. And so I'm happy to participate. And it's nice to see a bunch of poets in the room from my 408. So hello, hello. All right. So I know that if I'm sharing on PowerPoint, I need to minimize my grid. That means I won't be able to see you. So Kathy, if you see anybody raising their hand or anything, just let me know.
Yeah, that's what Jim and I do.
Okay, awesome. So just wanted to give you all an overview about what I'll be talking, how I'll structure this talk for the next hour. We're going to begin with definition. What is an artist statement? Then I wanted to give some examples of the kinds of professional opportunities for writers for which the artist statement might be useful. Then we'll actually break down the anatomy of an artist statement. We'll look at, I have an example and of my own, and then there's a couple others that if we have time, we'll look at those. And then finally, I'm hoping to have enough time at the end of the talk for you to just get started and launch into writing your own artist statement, or at least drafting some materials that could be seeds for your own artist statement. Part one, what is an artist statement? An artist statement is a short essay, usually 250 to 1,000 words, and that will really depend on what you're applying for. In my experience, when you apply for things, they'll have very strict parameters around word count. So ballpark, it's about 250 to 1,000 words, in which the artist or the writer introduces who they are in terms of aesthetics and creative interests, what they've accomplished in the past, and what creative projects they are currently pursuing. Writers use artist statements, also called, you might hear it called a statement of purpose, a statement of intent, a creative research proposal, or a work plan, to apply for professional development opportunities such as writing workshops, residencies, fellowships, and grant funding. And so it has that very practical side, but in my experience also, even though it seems like a kind of a strange genre where you're writing about your own work, you know, as a writer, maybe you think, I'm just going to do my thing and write my poetry and write my stories, and it's let the critics decide, you know.
I'll let my work speak for itself.
Exactly, you know, shouldn't the critics be the one analyzing my work and putting it in these frameworks? But I have found every time I've written an artist statement or a proposal that it really is clarifying. It helps me to honor my influence. It helps me to identify what my convictions are as a writer. And especially it helps me to clarify plans for creating new work. And that to me has been probably the most valuable aspect of the artist statement. To be honest, and I'm sure you've heard this in other sessions through this semester, you know, the writer's life is full of rejection. So you apply for everything and you don't, you know, you might get 1 out of every 20 things you apply for. So at the end of the day, the real benefit is actually the second part, which is that it's helping you to get to know yourself and to declare yourself as a writer and clarify your ideas and put it into words. So I wanted to jump in with an example, and since I'm going to be going back and forth, I don't know if I press on this, will it take me there? Oh, it did. Wow. Okay. Can you all see an artist statement in 5 questions? No.
Yes, that's what I see. But I just see the slide. I don't see anything else.
Oh, okay. I'm going to share the other thing then. Sorry, this is going to be a little back and forth, but shouldn't be too painful. Okay, so now, can you see a website? Okay, this is the writer Monica Ong, and I've actually put a link to this on the resource page where you can find it. I loved this when I was searching for artist statements. This felt like a very succinct and accessible way to think about what this is. So she was visiting Fordham University, and she decided to list 5 of the most commonly asked questions. So the first one she answers is, what brought you to poetry? So if you're not a poet, you know, what brought you to writing? And then her work is known for being hybrid or experimental. What makes your work hybrid or experimental? In your case, if you were asking yourself this question, or you might think, what makes your work your work? What is it that characterizes the work that you do? You know, what is it that makes it special? What makes it stand out? This is another question that I love, and is actually maybe not what you're thinking intuitively is important for an artist statement, but it actually is probably one of the cornerstones of the artist statement. Is what artists or writers inform your creative process? Who are your influences? You know, if you were to write out a constellation of artists and thinkers and, you know, activists and people who have influenced you. Who are they? Who are you putting in conversation in your own work? What are you building on?
One thing I was going to add to that is in 2 weeks, they're going to be reading Austin Kleon's Show Your Work. And one of the things that he talks about in his book is that your influences also don't have to be just literature. We're also influenced by a lot of different kinds of media, and you know, famous people are heroes. So I would encourage you to think about the answers to those questions as well.
Yes, and in fact, that makes it even more interesting in some ways that you're combining thinkers from different disciplines as you are, you know, creating your own work, which is true, right? We don't, you know, our thoughts are influenced by all kinds of things. So this one is a little trickier. What do you hope to contribute to American literature? It seems like a very daunting question in some way, but it is actually very important. You know, what do you have to offer the world, and don't shortchange yourself. What is it that you're bringing? Like, each of you is a unique person with unique life experience, and you have something to say and you have something to contribute. So that's an excellent question to yourself. And then the last one is career strategies. How do you support the poetry habit? In this case, she's probably being asked that by aspiring writers. But in terms of an artist statement, you know, a way of thinking about that question is also, what is your process for writing, and what do you need in order to accommodate that process? So I'm going to move back to the PowerPoint, but while I'm on the big screen here, any questions so far?
I don't know if you guys remember this, it's been a month or so, but at the beginning of the semester, I had you write out a bunch of stuff about what you've written. You did an inventory of all the things that you've written, and you wrote kind of a statement about your philosophy of art versus entertainment. Many of you wrote about that. So I think that that's a good place to start. You've actually already done some of the things that Katie's talked about here.
Awesome. Okay. Let me go back to the PowerPoint. All right, so part 2. What are some of the professional opportunities for which a person might need an artist statement? So again, I'm going to be probably flipping back and forth between the PowerPoint and being able to use online sources. So one of the first things that if I were you, I would like to have on my radar is creative writing workshops. Often these happen during the summer. They might also happen at sometimes, you know, during the semester, depending on where you are. But most of them that I know of happen over the summer. So it's like a summer camp for writers, and you attend a summer workshop, and you're assigned to a small group where you work with a well-known workshop leader. So it's similar to our workshops at Ball State. You'll critique each other's work, you offer suggestions for revision. But the advantage is that you're working with teachers from all over the country. Because if you can imagine, most writers who teach at universities, they're not able to really travel during the school year, but over the summer, there's more flexibility. So you could have professors from many different universities at the same workshop. So there's a terrific advantage to that. So let's see if I can move this out of your way. So I'll get this, I think, can you see it now? Faculty at creative writing workshops. So you'll attend the workshop. So the main feature of a summer workshop is that you're getting feedback on your own work. But it's also like a mini, I don't know, a mini college campus. So you'll have a schedule where all the faculty members give craft lectures during the time that you're there. There are readings by all the participants and by the faculty members. It's this incredible opportunity for you to learn from skilled teachers outside of a university environment. You can also sign up for information sessions with publishers. So these workshops are useful if you want to improve your writing skills, learn new techniques. But above all, these workshops are important for networking. So I'm going to give you just one example, and this is the Breadloaf Writers Workshop. And this one is one of the oldest ones. It was founded by Robert Frost. It's associated with Middlebury College. And Middlebury used to have a program in the summertime where people who were interested in teaching could get their master's degrees. So if they were high school teachers, for example, they could go and get a master's in English by taking classes over the summer. And there was a lot of professors from East Coast colleges would come there in the summertime to teach because it was such a lovely place to be in the summer. So Robert Frost, at the end of that literature session, realized there was this 2-week gap between the end of that summer session and Middlebury's fall semester. So he proposed a writing workshop. And so that's been going on for quite some time. And it has evolved over the years. But let me see if I can find a picture of it for you.
I'll have to show my students a picture of me with Tim O'Brien at Sewanee about 20 years ago, which was like one of the highlights of my life.
Right, so there are several of these. So they're often in beautiful places. If you can see this place right now, I don't know if I can find more pictures for you, but here, lodging and logistics might get us to some pictures. I should have found something with more pictures for you. Let's see. It's not giving me pictures, unfortunately. Just picture the Green Mountains, this gorgeous place in the Vermont mountains, and there's all kinds of Adirondack chairs, and you're there with all these people who love literature. There's like 100 people there, and you all have all your meals together. So you're having these amazing conversations, and you're hearing lectures by some of the most, fascinating writers in the country right now. And then at night, there'll be bonfires, and you're, out on the lawn watching the stars, and it's like summer camp basically with famous writers. So it's it's not just you just learn so much. I mean, I remember I went and I studied with Linda Beard, who was this poet I really admire. And it was after my MFA, and I had this instruction from my professors in my MFA about exposition in my work, and I never understood it. And in 30 minutes with Linda Beard, she explained something to me that basically changed the way that I write. Mm-hmm. So it's a great opportunity. And a lot of these places have, the drawback is they're sometimes super expensive to go as a contributor. So, but most of them have extensive scholarship opportunities. Mm-hmm.
And also, if you need letters of recommendation to go to those things, we are your people to write those for you, because we were your teachers here.
Right. So, and if you look at the resource page, you'll find some links to more places. Kathy mentioned Sewanee. Another good one is the Tin House. That one has been known for being more welcoming to diverse participants. They have a good reputation for honoring diversity. One that I really like is this Looking Glass Rock Writers Conference. It's brand new. It's probably a little more local, and it's probably less expensive. If I were you, that's one I would check out. Another thing you might apply for is an artist residency, and these are retreats to support writers, artists, musicians, and choreographers. So for these, you could picture maybe a small campus with a central dining room and a social space, and then other buildings or floors for lodging and studio space. So artists and writers go to residencies to focus on their work, get out of their normal routines. Often these places will cook your meals for you, so you don't have to cook, and it frees up a lot of time for you just to focus on your work. And again, this is an incredible opportunity to socialize with other writers For me, what I love about an artist residency is, I get to talk with a lot of artists in different disciplines. And I just find that really, I don't know, really affirming. Sometimes when I talk to other writers, you can get into this spiral where you're comparing yourself a little bit, or you're, thinking about, you're kind of competing for the same things. But with other artists, it doesn't really have that same thing. Okay, so now I'm going to show you a
Some,
picture of Ragdale.
something
Kathy, do
I,
you want to talk about Ragdale?
Sure. I was just going to say, I enjoyed Ragdale for that reason too. It's in Lake Forest, Illinois, and I was there with mostly writers, but also folks in there was a musician there. There were a couple of painters. There was, let's see, who else do we have? We had somebody who did sculpture and somebody who did dance. And, because English departments are located, creative writing is located in English departments, which are located in the College of Arts and Sciences generally. We don't get to hang out with the people we actually have more in common, with the folks over in the College of Fine Arts than sometimes we do with our colleagues in our departments. And so it's actually a good thing, I think, to hang out with these folks. So the thing about Ragdale that's different from Breadloaf or Sewanee is Breadloaf and Sewanee are places where you go to maybe be in a class with famous writers and to meet other writers, but you're not going to actually get any writing done. You will get no writing done because your brain is
Right.
full of all the socializing that you do. So if you really want to go to, if what you need is time to write, then you want to apply to a place like Ragdale that is a residency or an artist community. Only you know what you really need. So that's a good distinction. So that's the big house at Ragdale. And then there was a barn. That's where I stayed, was in the barn, which is just off the camera there. And everybody gets their own room with a little private bath. Most of them had private bathrooms, and you just hang out and write during the day and then get together for dinner and hang out a little bit in the evenings. In my group, we often went to the gym. That was our big thing. We would take a break to go to the gym. And they also had, and you can see the stuff there about the different sessions that you apply for and how you can apply for financial aid. And there's testimonials on there as well. I got a couple of chapters written of my novel when I was there.
And Ragdale's famous for having some of the most delicious food. So, and you sit around a table, like, I don't know if you can see that, but people that you're hanging out together. All right. How are we doing? Any questions so far? I just want to bring you through a couple of other examples of things you might apply for. Then we'll look at the artist statement, and then we'll have time for you to write. And there's some places to find more. Another thing to check out, actually, I think I put it on the resource page, is that a lot of the national parks in America have residencies. So if you're a person who likes to be outdoors, you can apply to be an artist in residence. I know there's a call right now for an artist in Death Valley. Last year, there was a call for an artist to go to Hawaii, to Volcano National Park. So if your work is something that for which, being in a national park would be beneficial, that's another thing to consider.
Cool.
Another opportunity for writing these artist statements are fellowships. So it's a broad term. It often means that you're admitted to a structured program that gives artists sustained financial support, or access to a library, or you participate in some kind of program. So you might apply for a short-term research fellowship. I have a lot of friends who've used the archives at the American Antiquarian Society, for example, if they're writing something that's related to American history. Or you could, there's some that are year-long or multi-year programs, such as the Fulbright or the Stegner Fellowship. And each fellowship has different parameters. So you'll have on the resource page some examples I think I'm going to show you the Cave Canem example here. All right, and that means, I'm sorry, I'm gonna head over to the
That's
other
okay.
screen. And can you all see Cave Canem now?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so this is a home for Black poetry, and it is a program that mentors emerging Black authors, and it has many different programs. Let's see if I can show you. It's hard to, I don't know why it's not letting me.
What did you want to show
So
them?
it has, I think you can see it now, that I wanted
Yeah.
the sidebar so you can see all the programs. So they have an annual retreat, which is kind of like a bread loaf where you go, although it is at that retreat, I do believe you do a lot of writing. There are community workshops. There's a fellowship program where you have a cohort of people that you are associated with for 1 or several years. What I love about Cave Canem is that it has a very developed mentorship program. My friends who have gone through Cave Canem have real relationships with established writers, and they correspond with them. They get a lot of feedback on their work. It's a true mentorship program. So there are other fellowships that are also sort of targeted to specific groups. So there's also Kundiman, which is for Asian American authors. There's Canto Mundo for Latinx authors. There's Lambda for writers who identify as LGBTQ plus. And so there's a lot of different organizations like that. There's all kinds of fellowships. I gave you a list to check out on the resource page if you're interested in that. And also, if you're interested in the Fulbright, I was a reader for the Fulbright for 3 years for the creative project. So if you're interested in going abroad, if there's something in your work that brings you abroad, please come talk to me so I can give you the insights I learned as someone who was on the other side of reading the applications. Or Jim, I always put Jim on the spot, but Jim is also a good resource there.
I was going to say that
if you ever have any questions about applying for the Fulbright, you can reach out to me. I did a Fulbright in Spain, so I'd be happy to answer questions.
I didn't even know that, Jim. Congratulations. I was going to suggest, as somebody who writes historical fiction, I've been able to get a lot of fellowships to do research at various archives where, for example, the character that I'm writing a novel about, a bunch of her scrapbooks are at the Houghton Library at Harvard. And so I applied for this fellowship to go there, and they gave me a bunch of money to just go there for a month and look at her scrapbooks. And so sometimes there's unique little things that are available only because of a certain collection that's at a particular library or archive as well.
And now that we're back on this big screen and I'm seeing Rebecca, it's reminding me to mention that there is a workshop for fantasy writing called Clarion, and that's similar to Breadloaf and very well known. So I would look that up as well. I didn't put that on the resource page, but we can add it.
I'll look it up. You
All
keep
right.
going.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Okay. Also, you would use a artist statement to apply for grants. And I put a list of grants that you might apply for and places to look for them. But I have a former student who got this Elizabeth George Foundation grant, which this is probably one of the last times I'll have to do this screen hopping. And about the applicants. Grants to short story writers, poets, unpublished novelists, emerging playwrights, unpublished creative nonfiction writers. One-time funding enables writers to live and work for a period of time not to exceed a year. So you can use them for living expenses, travel for research, artistic residencies, etc. So this is a kind of it's a really cool grant in the sense that it's so open-ended. Often grants will be much more targeted. There's restrictions on how you use the money, but this is a grant that if you persuade them to fund you, you can get some money to help you with all kinds of different aspects of the writing life. And one of my students, I think she was able to, she had funding for it to be able to write for 3 months or something. I don't know exactly how much she asked for, but. And I think it is targeted on emerging authors. All right, let's see. Okay, so anatomy of an artist statement. What are these things? What do they look like? So we already saw the questions, and essentially the questions that we went over are of Monica Ong's, questions that's kind of related to the anatomy. But I was trying to think if I were to tell you, 5 paragraphs for the artist statement. This is how I would break it down. The first is who I am. And here you can talk about your overarching interests. Who are you? What makes you tick? Where are you from? What if you're looking at your work, what are you interested in your work in general? The second paragraph is work you've done in the past. And here's where I might list artists and thinkers who've influenced me. And here's also where I might list some achievements that, because often, and I don't know, there's some pros and cons to this, but often people will take a chance on you if they see that you have used prior grants or fellowships well. If they know, okay, this person had a grant before and they transformed that time into a novel or something like that. It sort of establishes your credibility as a writer. So and of course, if you're an emerging writer, you won't have a huge list of achievements, but you'd be surprised by what you can list there. Even your involvement in this class, for example, I would list that as an achievement. It's something where it's showing your dedication to the writing life, and you've had training in how to be a professional writer. And so that's something I might list there. Paragraph 3, projects I'm working on now. And here I might list my current influences. I might list some questions that I'm, turning over in my writing. I might list, what's at stake, why this is important to me, this project I'm working on. And then paragraph 4 is a continuation. It's, this is the project I'm working on, but this one is more about methodology. So you detail your work plan. So I'll show you an example of mine in a minute, but this is also an important aspect. They want to know that if they're going to give you a residency, for example, that you have a clear plan, that you say, well, while at this residency, I plan to revise my first, revise 10 poems, compose 3 new poems, and start the research for another project. So if you can be clear about what you plan to get done, it tells them that you know how to use the time well. And then the last paragraph, you might go in 2 directions. One is you might say how you're a team player. How are you a literary citizen? How do you get along with groups, especially at a residency or a workshop? They want to know that you are somebody who works well with other people. And then you also want to say, why this residency, this grant, this fellowship in particular. And here you'll, whatever you're applying for, you'll do some research and look into the particulars there. And if you can mention that in your letter, they'll know that you're serious. Any questions coming up? All right. I'm going to show you, let's see. Ooh. All right, I'm going to show you, how are we doing for time? Okay, I'm going to show you an actual letter that I used to apply to Ragdale. I didn't get in on this letter, but I've been there before, but I still think it shows you kind of the structure of an artist statement.
Do me pause the recording so people can't steal your
Sure.
ideas? Okay, I'll pause.
Well, I'm not worried about that so much as it's just a little embarrassing. Okay. Anatomy of the artist statement. Any
I want-
questions before? Yeah, Kathy.
What does that make you guys think about in terms of where you locate the control over your writing? Like when you think about when do you write and what determines how often you write or what you're going to write, where does that happen? Is that are those decisions that you're making? Where does that come from? Anybody? In the chat or out loud? Maybe you've just never thought about it. For me, the paradigm shift that I want you to get from what Katie's talking to you about is that the locus of control for you has to shift from other people are telling you what to write and when to write and how much to write and what the deadlines are and what the assignment is and all that stuff. And once you get out of college, you have to say, okay, now I'm in control. I have to say, I'm going to write 3 poems. I'm going to write 6 poems. And for me, that was the biggest paradigm shift was when I realized that I had to start making those decisions. And that's the most important thing I hope you get from this whole series, actually, is how important it is for your writing life to make that shift once you're out of school, and how important it is to maintain your writing life with that mindset. Thank you, Katie.
Mm-hmm. And I'll just tell you a secret that, in fact, for me, I always need a writing group, because even outside of the school context, I find that it's helpful to have an immediate audience of friends who are going to read my work and give me deadlines. And so, yes, I think Kathy's right, shifting that locus of control and also taking initiative to find accountability on your own as well. So let's try our hand at some of this. And I've adapted some questions from a book that Jim knows well, which is Felicia Rose Chavez's The Anti-Racist Writing Workshop. And for her, this process of clarifying your own aesthetic, your own ambitions for writing is the central aspect of the workshop. And so she offers a series of questions that I'd like for us to try just to start formulating that. So
That's right.
That's right. Okay, so I'll begin with this question, and I think if it's all right with you all, I'll set timers. I like to work with a timer. So the first question is, what are some of your favorite writers, artists, musicians? It's that question of influence again. And how have they influenced your own thinking about the creative process? So since we're not having to draft something super formal yet, you might also think about this. You can write about it in whatever form you like. So you can write a letter to somebody. You could write it as a list. You could write it in paragraphs, or you could also just make a map of your influences. So I'm going to give us 2 minutes to do that. Ready, start.
If you're watching this on YouTube, you do it too.
Okay, I know that's kind of a short time, but let's move on to the next question. Hoping these are just seeds for you to get started. Okay. The next question, what do you like about writing? Why is it important to you? So you can either start there, or Chavez recommends the following pre-write, which is to time yourself. Again, we're going to maybe use 2 minutes just to have time for questions after. And I love this assignment that she offers here, which is just to write a series of statements that begin with, I am a good writer because, I am a good writer because, I am a good writer because, and answering those questions. So what do you like about writing? Why is it important to you? And if you like, I am a good writer because. Ready, go. All right, how are we doing? Okay, here we go. The next one. What writing projects are you working on now? And or what are you reading now? So if we had more time, she also, I think that you've already done this, it sounds like, with Kathy's assignment. But I love this again, Chavez's advice is to close read 3 samples of your own work and to kind of take a more objective look at your own work. And as you read, you know, what themes emerge? What sort of questions have you explored in your writing in the past? What do you notice about your approach to craft? Like, you know, what are your go-to techniques? So this is what writing projects are you working on now? And or what are you reading now? So we're going to take 2 minutes. Ready, go. Okay, next one. So this one is actually, I think, useful in terms of when you're trying to decide what sort of place to apply for. If you are interested in applying to one of these writing residencies, because they come in a lot of different shapes and forms. So sometimes you'll apply to a place where you're the only writer. Like I think there's a cabin on Long Island somewhere where you're there by yourself for a month, or sometimes you're going to someplace that's more remote. And some residencies are much more social than others. And so thinking about what works well for you. You also there might be a certain, I don't know, kind of a space that works better for you. But in general, just even if you're not going to a residency, this is a great question to consider your writing process and your writing rituals. You know, what helps you get into the writing zone? What does it take to create a space conducive to writing for you? And we will take 2 minutes. Ready, go. I just looked at the time and I realized we only have like 5 minutes left. So I think with that, maybe we can stop there. And if you guys have any questions for me, I've put these questions for you on the resource page, so you can continue to work with them if you like. How did that go? How did that go trying to craft or answer those questions? Did it flow pretty well? Was it hard to think of some of them? Were some of the questions harder than others?
I think some people are typing their answers in. One thing I was going to say while people are thinking is that those are really good questions. If any of you are thinking about applying to grad school in creative writing, like these are also the statement of purpose that you have to write for grad school. Like this is really good raw material for that. Rebecca says, it wasn't that hard except for the last one. I haven't really analyzed my writing space or how I get in the mood. Yeah. Do you think that's because so much of your writing is about external, like writing to deadlines and to assignments? And Cole says, most of my answers haven't changed from both my last artist statement and my statement of purpose. Okay, that's good. Kayla says, for me, can you see these two, Katie? I want to read them out loud. Yeah, I can see them. I want to read them out loud so people listening to the recording know what people are saying. Kayla says, for me, it spawned a bit of stress release in writing about it. Good. Rebecca says, I think it's because I can write anywhere as long as I have a paper and the focus. That's true. And Ella says, every time I'm asked who inspires me, my mind goes blank. That's a really important, it's a really important question because we all have some sort of influence. I wish that I could show you my, or maybe you actually have, maybe it's that you haven't found the big influence yet. I can't think of any writerly influences until I went to college and really more grad school, because I didn't grow up in a world with very many books or writers around. So I didn't really have my biggest influences in high school was U2, you know, so there we go.
Yeah.
Aw. Kayla says, I haven't had time to read for myself in a few years, and I recently realized that I truly miss it. And that is definitely something. Kayla's a non-traditional student, has a child, and like working on your identity as a writer is something that you have to think about for the rest of your life if you really want to write, because life will make you think of other things. And that's one of the reasons why these opportunities that Katie's telling us about are so important, because they help you maintain your identity as a writer, because it goes away sometimes. Sometimes you forget. You're like, wait, where's all that stuff that I used to love? Do you want to read a couple or answer a few, Katie?
Yeah, well, it sounds like I think that's all the ones that I see. Well, you mean just, yeah, I think it's interesting that, the mind goes blank with influences. I think it's also just broadening the scope of what the influence is. And it doesn't have to be necessarily, it doesn't have to be super literary. And it can also be, just people who impact your thinking and, or people who make you think, is one way of considering that. Yeah, I mean, I'm putting a lot of stuff out there, and I don't think when I was in undergrad that I was really applying to a lot of these things. So but I also kind of wish that when I was an undergrad I had known about them, because I don't think my teachers thought to tell us about them. So a lot of my journey was discovering things on my own, and it doesn't hurt to kind of have it on your radar to know what these opportunities are.
Samuel has a good question for you. He says, how often do you apply to residencies now, Katie?
Well, when I was working on my Lava book, I applied to residencies quite a lot. I think it's easy to apply when you have a project book. So that's another thing that's interesting. Pros and cons. I think it can actually shape these grants can kind of shape the American literary landscape in a way, because they tend to favor projects, but that's another can of worms. So I would often apply to, I don't know, 6 or 7 residencies, and I would get into maybe 1 or 2. And I've been to, there was a stretch there where I was going to at least 1 residency per summer for many years. And then since COVID, I haven't been, I'm actually going to a residency. Now I'm outing myself to my students, but I'm going to Playa Summer Lake residency, which is in Oregon over spring break. And I was supposed to go during COVID, or during 2020, but it was canceled because of COVID. And so they've given me a very short residency, which I've never gone for such a short amount of time. So it's a 5-day residency, and it's kind of remote. So anyway, I'm going out there in March, and but I haven't been applying to new residencies because of COVID. A lot of residencies had to reschedule everyone who got admitted, and so there's a backlog. And for a number of reasons, but for a long stretch there, I was applying a lot. They're my favorite place to work at. I'm a very social person, so it's kind of an odd thing. I'm, this odd writerly solitude and community. It exactly describes me. I need quiet, but I'm incredibly social. I love talking to people. And I love hanging out with artists and stuff. So
I was going to say, just to kind of wrap things up, that when I had to overcome, I think, a lot of like cultural conditioning as a Midwesterner. to make myself apply to a residency. I went to my first residency like in my 40s, and I think it's because I kept telling myself, what a wasteful thing. You can just go in your room and shut the door and write. You don't need to go to a whole place. You don't need to have all these other people around you. It's like my grandma talking to me, you know? And, but what I discovered was that like, it's very easy, even though I have a job to write, my teaching and other things get in the way, my life gets in the way. And the residency at Ragdale was crucial to me continuing to be a writer. And it's like, you have to keep doing things you know, on your own to keep reminding yourself, I think, that those are things. So don't, if you get those voices in your head like I do, don't listen to them. If there's not anything else, make sure that you do the survey. And there's actually a question at the end about just the whole Writers at Work series itself. So I hope that you'll give us some feedback on that. And I want to thank Katie, my friend and my colleague, for being so awesome and sharing this knowledge, because sharing knowledge is so important. Like sharing the things that writers know, but they don't realize, or they forget that younger writers don't know all these things. And that's just really, really important to share that knowledge. So thank you, Katie, for being here. And if you want to stay here for a second, so I can say goodbye to you, but I'll say goodbye to my students. And I'll see you Monday with your book reviews. They're going to be awesome. Let me know if you have any questions.
Thanks, everyone.